Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to a new Quran study. And today, God willing, we're gonna read from Surah 7, Purgatory, verse 38. I seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Verse 38. Mutual blaming. He will say, enter with the previous communities of jinns and humans into hell. Every time a group enters, they will curse their ancestor group. Once they are all in it, the latest one will say of the previous one, our Lord, these are the ones who misled us. Give them double the retribution of hell. He will say, each receives double, but you do not know. So, as we see here in this verse, God is talking about, on the day of judgment, um, blaming others, will not save anyone. As we see here, God mentioned that the leaders will be, punished for misleading, and also the followers also will be punished for, choosing to follow. So here we see that everyone, carries their own responsibility before God, and that teaches us that we should be, careful to not let uh, cultures or leaders or anyone, else, pull you away from the truth. Because in the end, it will be just you standing before God for your own choices. 39. The ancestral group will say to the later group, since you had an advantage over us, taste the retribution for your own sins. So here, when the verse says, since you had an advantage over us, what does it mean? It means that the later group, which is the followers, thought they could blame the earlier ones, which is the leaders, for everything. But God here says that the leaders, gonna answer back. They're gonna say, you had your own life, your own chances, your own mind, you were not helpless. It's like they're gonna say to the followers that you had the same advantages as us, the ability to choose, to reflect, to, study, to understand. So don't try to put it on us. That's what does it mean? What it means. And in other words, both sides had opportunity. The leaders misled, but the followers also accepted. So that's why, both share the punishment. 40. Rejecting God's revelations, an unforgivable offense. Surely, those who reject our revelations and are too arrogant to uphold them, the gates of the sky will never open for them, nor will they enter paradise until a camel passes through the needle's eye. With us recruit the guilty. They had incurred hell as an abode. They will have barriers above them. With us recruit the transgressors. So, reflecting on this verse, we see that God chose the image of a camel passing through the eye of a needle. Why? Because it is something, clearly impossible. Everyone hearing it will immediately understand that can never happen. And So here the message is clear that those who reject God's revelations, you know, out of arrogance will never enter paradise. You know, not because God is unfair or anything else, but because they choose, to close the door on themselves. Just like a camel can never, fit through a needle, arrogance too, can never fit into paradise. 42. As for those who believe and lead a righteous life, we never burden any soul beyond its means. These will be the dwellers of paradise. They abide in it forever. By God's grace, we will remove all jealousy from their hearts. Rivers will flow beneath them, and they will say, God be praised for guiding us. We could not possibly be guided if it were not that God had guided us. The messengers of our Lord is bring the truth. They will be called, this is your paradise. You have inherited it in return for your works. MashaAllah. So we see that now, after talking about, the fate of the rejectors, God turns to the believers. So we see here in these verses, he says, those who believe and live a righteous life will be the people of paradise. MashaAllah. And also, God tells us, as for those who believe and live a righteous life, we never burden any soul beyond its means. So here I want to reflect on this. Um, so this is the difference between. Sorry,
Guys, can you
I
please
can
mute?
hear. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. No problem. So as I said, I want to reflect on this verse when God says we never burden any soul beyond its means. So this is, the difference between God's true religion and the fake ones human invent. So as we know, mashallah, God's way is natural, balanced, and merciful, So he asked us to believe, to be righteous, to pray, 5 times a day, to fast for a month, give charity, etc. And all these things is within what our bodies and hearts can carry. MashaAllah, that's from His mercy. For the fake religion, if we reflect on them, they often, goes to extremes, and for example, we see that some religions make things difficult for people. For example, some, for example, say you cannot marry if you want to be close to God, for example, but God Himself created marriage as a peace and a blessing. Also, another example, some people make fasting impossible, starving themselves for a days, while God will only ask us to fast with, just with compassion, just 1 month in a year. Also, some religions demand endless, cycles of prayers. For example, hundreds a day. For example, as if God needs you to break your back to, prove devotion, which is not the case. When God actually wants us to, you know, um, to worship Him with our hearts and not exhaust us, mashallah. So they think that the harder it is, the more holy it becomes, which is wrong. because God is not like that. MashaAllah is so merciful. And this is a blessing from God that this religion is very um, flexible and balanced, and a lot of mercy is for our benefits, first of all, mashallah. Um, so God knows us, because He made us, and if the path, of religion feels heavy and unnatural, that's not from God. So, so in the verse, God says that those believers will live in paradise forever, and by God's grace, all jealousy and hurt will be, removed from their hearts. So, mashallah, imagine a place where there is only peace, love, and joy, nothing toxic, nothing negative. Um, this is really paradise. So, mashallah. And when God says, this is your paradise you have inherited because of your works, you know, this also needs to be reflected on, because God didn't say because of your belief, He says because of your works. And that's a reminder. He's reminding us that belief is not just words, it's not enough to believe. The real belief must be, with actions. Um, that's very important. It's easy to say I believe in God, Satan also said that, but the true proof is, in our actions, in our submission to God alone in our lives, in our life, sorry. 44, the dwellers of paradise will call the dwellers of hell. We have found our Lord's promise to be the truth. Have you found your Lord's promise to be the truth? They will say, yes. An announcer between them will announce, God's condemnation has befallen the transgressors, who repel from the path of God and strive to make it crooked. And with regard to the hereafter, they are disbelievers. Um, so here in these verses, we see that God shows, this conversation. It's a conversation, to make the lesson very clear. So the people of paradise confirmed that, God's promise was true because they believed and acted, on it. And the people of hell, admit the truth too, but only after it's too late. So that should be a lesson, very important lesson that teach us um, that, you know, don't wait to accept the truth, recognize it and follow the guidance, follow the truth, before it's too late. Because here we are in this life, we still have time, but people here, we see that they regret it because it's too late. And um, you know, as a submitter, we should always follow God's guidance and not, not delay. 46, a barrier separates them, while the purgatory is occupied by people who recognize each side by their looks. They were called the dwellers of paradise. Peace be upon you. They did not enter paradise through wishful thinking. The footnote says, initially there will be 4 places one, the high heaven; two, the lower heaven; three, the purgatory; and four, hell. The purgatory will be annexed into the lower heaven. And the verse 47 says, when they turn their eyes towards the dwellers of hell, they will say, our Lord, do not put us with these wicked people. So, as we know that the dwellers of, purgatory are the people who did not um, fully reach paradise, right? So they didn't nourish their soul enough, to reach paradise. Uh, Also, they are not among the rejectors of God, so they also haven't fully, earned paradise yet. And here we see that they occupy this in between place, right? As a sort of waiting area where they can see both paradise and hell. So here we see that they are aware, of the rewards and the punishments, and they acknowledge the people of paradise with respect by saying, "Peace be upon you." And they mention something very important. They say they did not enter paradise by wishful thinking or by luck, because we know that the path of paradise requires a lot of efforts and actions, mashallah. And they acknowledge that because um, they are in a place where they can see, both punishment and reward. Um, the next verse, the majority doomed. The dwellers of the purgatory will call on people they recognize by their looks, saying, your great numbers did not avail you in any way, or did your arrogance. So here, um, important, lesson that we should learn from this verse. Here God is, showing that being part of a large group or society, does not guarantee success or salvation. Only those who recognize the truth, submit themselves to God alone and act righteously, those the one who gonna be saved. So always, Quran warns that, most people, the majority, go the wrong way. So here another warning, um, telling us that it's easy to follow the crowd, but you know that often leads to loss if the crowd is ignoring God's guidance, which is um, from the Quran. We know that most people, the majority, make the wrong choices. So we should be really careful. Um, 49. Are those the people who you swore that God will never touch them with mercy? The people in the purgatory will then be told, enter paradise, you have nothing to fear, nor will you grieve. MashaAllah, beautiful verse. It shows, MashaAllah, the mercy of God. So here, um, after being in the waiting place, seeing, as we saw in the previous verses, they saw both paradise and hell. The dwellers of the, purgatory fully realize the consequences, of choices and the reality of God's justice, because God is just. So they recognize the truth, and because of their um, recognition, humility, and of course God's mercy, He saved them and allowed them to enter paradise because God is so merciful. Um, mashallah, thank God. Um, 50. The dwellers of hell will call on the dwellers of paradise. Let some of your water or some of God's provisions to you flow towards us. They will say, God has forbidden them for the disbelievers. Those who do not take their religion seriously and are totally preoccupied with this worldly life will forget them on that day, because they forgot that day and because they spurned our revelations. Um, Here, these verses, shows that on the day of judgment, um, the consequences, of choices are real, and final and eternal, you know. So, um, mercy and blessings, cannot flow to those who reject God's guidance. And the verse 51 explains why. Because those who ignored their religion, who, were only busy with this worldly life, and who rejected God's revelations, are, forgotten by God on that day, just as they ignored it in this life. This is the justice actually. Um, uh, 52. Quran fully detailed. We have given them a scripture that is fully detailed with knowledge, guidance, and mercy for the people who believe. Are they waiting until all prophecies are fulfilled? The day such fulfillment comes to pass, those who disregarded it in the past will say, the messengers of our Lord have brought the truth. Are there any ancestors to intercede on our behalf? Will you send us back so that we change our behavior and do better works than what we did? They have lost their souls, and their own innovations have caused their doom. So, mashallah, a lot of things to say about this verse. Um, so here we see, mashallah, that God says He has given humanity, a scripture that is fully detailed, mashallah, filled with everything we need, with knowledge, guidance, and mercy, you know, only for those who truly believe and seek, the guidance sincerely. Um, then God wants, you know, um, by saying, are people waiting for the prophecies to come true before they believe? You know, so So on the day of judgment, when everything happens exactly as told, those who ignored and rejected it will realize the truth finally, and they will say, the messenger of our Lord were right. Can anyone intercede for us? Can we go back and do better? But here, this will not gonna help them because it's gonna be too late. Their own choices, their innovations and their rejection of guidance have, caused their loss, unfortunately, and their doom gonna be, eternal. And here we should learn from that. God gives us guidance, in very detail, everything we need. And we are, responsible to, act on it before it's too late, because waiting or ignoring it only brings regret in the end. Um, 54. Your Lord is the one God who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, then assumed all authority. The night overtakes the day as it pursues it persistently, and the sun, the moon, and the stars are committed to serve by his command. Absolutely, he controls all creation and all commands. Most exalted is God, Lord of the universe. And the footnote says, the 6 days of creation are allegorical. They serve as a yardstick to let us know the relative complexity of our infinitesimal planet Earth. It was created in 4 days, c. 4110. So, mashallah, moving now to describe God's creation, mashallah, and his um, infinite blessing. And we see in the footnotes, God mentioned 6 days of creation are allegorical, you know. So that means it's not literally, you know, 24 hours days as we know now. No, they are, meant to help us, understand the complexity and care involved, in creating the universe and our planet. Um, it's a way, to show that Earth and everything around it are not simple, are not accidental, as some people believe, no. Even though 6 days is a short, measure compared to God's infinite power, but it gives us, a sense of the process and order in His creation, mashallah. So the point here is not to, you know, um, to give the exact length of time, but the wisdom, the planning, the precision in God's creation, mashallah. God be glorified. Next verse, 55. You should worship your Lord publicly and privately. He does not love the transgressors. Do not corrupt the earth after it has been set straight, and worship him out of reverence and out of hope. Surely God's mercy is attainable by the righteous. MashaAllah. Um, so here God is telling us, to worship him, in every part of life, both publicly and privately. And um, that means, being mindful of him anywhere, anytime, at home, at work, um, or even, you know, when no one is watching, as well as in community and family, you know, and also he does not love those who transgress, those who ignore limits or harm others, he doesn't like that. Also, I wanna uh, reflect on the verse when he says worshiping God out of reverence and hope. Um, it means, two things together. Reverence and means that being careful, not to do wrong things. Um, and hope, trusting God's mercy. Sorry, by um, believing that good actions and righteous things and sincere prayers will be rewarded. For example, if you give charity, pray, do your prayer, or help someone, do it carefully and sincerely, right? That means reverence, respecting God's guidance, but also at the same time hope that He will reward and forgive you. Those both feelings, make our worship, complete. MashaAllah, reverence and hope. 57. He's the one who sends the wind with good omen as a mercy from his hands. Once they gather heavy clouds, we drive them to dead lands and send down water therefrom to produce within all kinds of fruits. We thus resurrect the dead, that you may take heed. The good land readily produces its plants by the leave of its Lord, while the bad land barely produces anything useful. We thus explain the revelations for people who are appreciative. Mashallah, beautiful. Um, Here, subhanAllah, God tells us about His power and mercy, through nature. So he mentioned that he sends winds that bring good news, clouds and rain, as a gift from his hands. You know, um, and when the clouds gather, he drives them to dry, dead lands, and sends down water. All this, makes the land produce fruits and crops, showing how God can, bring life from death. SubhanAllah. It's a reminder um, for us, to reflect and take heed. Um, Also, there is some lands that are, fertile and produce easily, while others are poor and give very little, you know. So in the same way, some hearts are, you know, um, receptive to God's guidance, respond easily, while other closed and um, hardened hearts struggle to accept easily. So um, God explains His revelations clearly for those who are, grateful and appreciative, so they can learn and get benefit from it. MashaAllah. So Noah 59. We sent Noah to his people, saying, O my people, worship God. You have no other God beside him. I fear for you the retribution of an awesome day. The leaders among his people said, We see that you are far astray. He said, O my people, I am not astray. I am a messenger from the Lord of the universe. I deliver to you the messages of my Lord, and I advise you, and I know from God what you do not know. So here, mashallah, this is Noah, Noah's story. You know, as all we know, Noah's story, mashallah. Um, it's more than a prophet warnings, to his people. It's about, the struggle between, the truth and the human arrogance. We see that when he called, his people to worship God alone, but the arrogant leaders, rejected him and blended by power and desire, So we see here that Noah did not argue in the same manner, with pride. No, he patiently reminded them, that he spoke with knowledge from God, giving them clear guidance, you know, and they could not understand them, on their own. Um, so here the lesson is the truth is often rejected by the majority because the truth is the most people prefer, comfort, uh, popularity, or the safety of the crowd, But what saves a person is not being with the majority, No, it is humility, sincerity, and following God's guidance, submitting to God alone. That's what makes a person, be saved. And Noah's story shows us that, even if almost everyone, laughs at you or ignores you or calls you names, or you must still hold firmly to what you know is right. You know, guidance from God is not about being popular or anything. It's about being true. Follow the truth that that will save you. So um, and we know that following the truth, takes a lot of courage. It takes patience, steadfastness. It takes the strength to stand alone, to resist, the temptation of ease and the pressure of numbers. So that's why, as we know, as we learned from previous verses, paradise is not easy to reach. It's not for those who live in comfort by ignoring God. No, paradise is for the true submitters, the hard workers, the ones who struggle, who face mockery, who fight their own egos, and still seek God's pleasure, above all else. Mashallah. May God help us to be with the true submitters and to be in paradise, God willing, inshallah, by His help. Um, I will stop here. Thank you for listening. If you have any comments or questions, please be free. Thank you.
MashaAllah, thank you very much. It was great.
MashaAllah, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
MashaAllah, sister, you explained every verse very well. Yeah, beautiful.
Sure, thank you.
All right, so if anyone has any comments or questions about the verses we read, please feel free to share at this time. Yeah, no, I just had a comment. I was just reflecting on like how God is so merciful. I mean, the title of this chapter is Purgatory, and and we read about purgatory in these verses, and we see in these verses like, I mean, God could have just created, high heaven and hell, or just heaven and hell, right? But we see that God has created hell, but he has just not created heaven, but he's also created a lower heaven, and then he's also created a purgatory, you know, to give those people, at this m- thing that they don't really would otherwise, I mean, I don't want to say that they don't deserve, but I mean, it's like, it's just out of God's mercy because they didn't have enough credits really to go into paradise, even lower paradise. But God is still so merciful that He doesn't want them to end up in hell because they're at 50-50, and out of His mercy, He's letting those people come in as well, So that shows how merciful God is. But I mean, in spite of all of this, most people will still end up in hell, right? And mashallah, that's why I really like the emphasis on the majority, and not seeking comfort in the numbers and the outward appearance of a religious group. I think certainly something that people could be getting sucked into now that submission is growing too, specifically, and there's all these different deviations, and like sort of sects in the making that are emerging, as history repeats itself, that we're seeing the same type of behavior that we have witnessed in these previous generations on how they deviated, and but God says that, as it says in the Bible too, right? I mean, the path to paradise is difficult and narrow, right? But we see that the um, path to hell is very easy, very wide. There's so many people doing it. It's very easy to get in, to the club. And I mean, shouldn't laugh about that, but it just means sarcastic here is, I mean, it is a very sorry condition for these people that, in spite of God's system, in spite of Him sending a messenger and the guidance and the book and the miracle, that people still end up, with all this clear guidance that we have today and all the tools we have in today's age, that majority of these people will still end up going into hell. Um, but I mean, as you said, that the people, the real true submitters, they're not the ones that are just going to take it easy and relax and just be complacent and have wishful thinking, taking comfort in the fact that either they're growing in numbers, or the fact that they're submitters now, that they can just relax now they found the message, that it's going to be an easy ride and they'll just make it. you know um, yeah, I mean, given the fact that we have all of these tools now and we have the miracle, I mean, we have I mean, a much greater responsibility, as we know, right, from the miracle, from the message, from the truth. So our responsibility is much higher as well. We also are in a position, being at a point where submission hasn't fully prevailed, that we can get persecuted, and ridiculed, etc. That gives us a lot of um, gives us a lot of opportunity as well, to earn a lot of credit. So we have advantages that are, that can help us too, but we also have, other things that can go against us because we have the responsibility. And mashallah, I mean, these examples are there. God is teaching us so we can learn from them and grow stronger, especially, in these Quranic studies. I want to say again, that are very important for us, all of us, to participate in, as much as we can, God willing. It helps to remind us, especially when we sit together and we listen to other people's perspectives. It helps us grow our understanding and our perspectives. Thank you all for being here, mashallah. God tells us to force ourselves to be with the believers, and definitely why, because it is so important for us to be together and hear these things, mashallah.
MashaAllah. Yeah.
Mashallah, brother. Well said. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, everybody has his journey. And I when I became a submitter, also I'm also going through all these things. When I became a submitter, I thought, oh,
Mhm.
as a submitter, oh, everybody's like, as a submitter, they like follow Quran alone, and they follow the all the teaching of mission of covenant. So I was thinking, so mashallah, like within couple of years, I joined different Quran studies, and I talked to the different people, different communities. So now I realize, so this is not the case actually. Even the people call them submitter, but I thought, oh, they are following everything as Quran alone, but it's when I see them now,
Mhm.
they are following something else, and they are not serious about their religion. Even they call them the submitters. Yeah,
Mhm.
so sometimes also you explain, I actually, when I get time, even though I am not able to join the Quran study, but I listen on YouTube, most of this
Mhm.
Quran study,
Yes.
brother. Because this Quran study is, almost matching my understanding, when I listen your Quran study and I have no question, it's look like, so then I like it.
Yeah,
But
mashallah. Brother John told me when he told me, he said, Brother Nizam joined, last time. I think you tried to join twice and we weren't there. I joked about it too with him. I said you should ask him. I said if he was stuck in a coma for 2 years because we didn't see you for a long time. But mashallah, welcome back. God willing, God willing, we should make time for God, obviously, and schedule. We're all struggling with it, by the way, being
Mhm.
with our personal lives as well, but we should try to, God willing, all of us, including myself, try to schedule our lives around our religious practices and our Quran studies. Um, yeah, lately we have to keep moving those studies because of different things coming in, like moving from Saturday to Sunday or Tuesday to Wednesday. But we still try to do it. Either way. Mashallah.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I joined that, I think, the Tuesday, and brother John said maybe he said on Wednesday, and I didn't
Hmm.
notice anything on Wednesday, and I was checking on the YouTube, maybe it's running. I think, I don't know why, maybe they late, maybe 1 hour and a half. I don't know. I'm not sure. So I tried to
Uh-huh.
join Wednesday and tried to join last Saturday.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, we also have the WhatsApp group, so when we end up rescheduling it, like that's a place where we talk about it if
Mhm,
we are not able to make it or something like that we reschedule it. So
mhm.
we discuss in that WhatsApp
Oh,
group. So if you want, give me your WhatsApp info and then I can add you to that group also, God willing, brother.
okay.
Hmm.
I think I give you add the
Did I?
yeah, I think you know my number already.
Okay.
I'll text you. Yeah, okay. So
Okay,
you
sure.
you do not have the messenger group anymore, right? Because I was looking
No.
the so no, okay, only WhatsApp. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. No
Yeah,
problem.
mashallah. So we also have brother Chris with us as well. He's just joined us today. Brother Chris, welcome. And brother Nizam also joined us for the first time. So welcome to him.
Yeah, no, brother, last I remember you said was, the believer, are united. If they have the same belief, So
Hmm.
even though, and I was out of Quran study, but here because of other situation, but I am
Hmm.
telling so understanding
Mashallah.
belief is all same. So we are
Alhamdulillah.
united actually. Yeah,
Mashallah, that's great.
yeah,
Good to hear, brother.
yeah.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. So, Brother Chris, also, would you like to say a few words about yourself, to introduce yourself to the rest of the group, if you don't mind?
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Chris. Right now I live in Central America. I was inspired to move here a while ago and get my residency in Panama. Thank by God's grace, I got that taken care of at this point. I'm in a master's degree program for teaching English as a second language. Not 100% sure if I'm going to finish it, but it was one of the things I was working on while I was out here. And I've been a submitter since like 2019, I think.
Oh, mashallah, that's great. How did you discover submission, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I was getting pretty convicted of, well, let's see. So I was pretty much an atheist until I was about 27. And at the age of 27, I had a bunch of bad stuff. I mean, there was a lot of things happening like throughout the years that were bad, and then it just kind of like became overwhelming at the age of 27. And I wound up in a very like unfortunate position. And I think I was just kind of really low to the ground, and I was living with my mom. I didn't have a job. I was just struggling a lot, and I think I was listening to the Bible, not believing in it, pretty much hopelessly stuck in atheism, believing in a lot of stuff, like a lot of alternative medicine and stuff that, I wasn't totally cut off from reality, but specifically creationism, specifically heaven, specifically hell, specifically God. The Bible, the Quran, these things like never occurred to me. Like, and the Quran was not something I grew up hearing about, but the Bible was something I did grow up hearing about. So I had strong opinions about it, and I kind of, I guess, subconsciously ruled it out as a source of truth or inspiration. But yeah, I was just not doing well, and I think I was listening to a Bible. It's kind of ironic. It was called the Message, and it's a version of the Bible. It's like super plain, super down to earth, super plain English. And I got to the part where one of the Gospels where Jesus is telling somebody to sell everything they have and give the money to the poor. And I'd really been interested in things like psychology and philosophy in my life and self-improvement and stuff like that, but I had never thought much about charity. So from that very low place, I think I went and gave away like most of my stuff, just thinking, okay, whatever, like I guess I never thought about trying that. And it was shortly after that I saw a series of divine coincidences that led me to a bunch of truth in the Bible, and then I became kind of obsessed with the Bible. And then but I couldn't find a translation that I liked, or there's just so many with the Bible. There's literally like thousands of translations, and I would read different versions of different things, and I'd be like, these can't both be correct, and I just got frustrated. And in hindsight, I guess I was kind of splitting hairs, but I think ever since I believe God has done this thing where it's like he'll give me a desire for something and then it'll come up. Um, I'll have this specific idea, like, oh, that's what I need, and then it'll come to me in a way I didn't expect, basically. Thank God. So I wasn't doubting the words of the Bible at the time, but I was doubting the translations. And I think I was on Amazon looking I don't know if I was searching best translation or authorized translation or what, but that's how I got to I think that's when I found a book called The Computer Speaks. So that's what I found, and that was a godsend because it was the 19 code meant a lot, because I was also seeing, like I would see things like the first sentence of the Bible in Hebrew, it has this 7 factors of 7, like mathematical property. And so I was being introduced to those concepts. And then, yeah, the idea of a translation that was authorized word for word, specifically a living soul who was authorized to do such a thing, instead of, something that handed down over the last 2,000 years, and God knows what they've done to it since then,
Right.
So yeah, that was my yeah.
So that's awesome.
MashaAllah.
Praise be to God.
Praise be to God.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome,
Yeah.
brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, mashallah. So who is the sincere in their heart, So any God will, give them the message, will bring to the true message, So I think the brother, was looking, for the truth. So God, so give him the truth, mashallah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to remember that part of my testimony where I was like, I gave my stuff away because I've tried to convince other people about submissions over the years, and I've had experiences where I was preaching. I had a coworker who was like, he seemed like he was really potentially going to believe, or oh, I don't know, exceptionally open minded to things or something like that, and like we would see 19s like all over the place whenever we would talk and stuff like that. And one time I gave him the Quran on my phone, and he spent the whole break reading it, and he like couldn't put it down. So it's been frustrating for me that I haven't been able to. I don't think I've moved anybody to my point of view at this point. But I do always remember that thing about giving my stuff away. Like I know the Quran doesn't advocate giving away everything, but like I had a roommate and I tried to convince him because he knew what I was doing. We're like he knew about my practices, and I tried to convince him to give away. He had a bike, and I was like, and I knew it would be worth about 2.5% of his total income for the year. And I knew somebody who needed a bike, and I was like, dude, I'm telling you, like you should try it. Just test it out. Just see like because that was what got me. I really believe that until I gave my things away at that initial outset, like I felt like I don't know. I just always try to reflect on what that had to do with my personal guidance, because it's like for all my life I
Mm-hmm.
could have found stuff. I was always a seeker, but I don't think I didn't seem like I was eligible for true guidance until I did something that was actually halfway decent without knowing. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just always remember that part of my.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always, like we talked about the journey, right? And journey, starts, consists of a lot of different steps we take, lots of different directions that we take. I mean, and I think like the journey can begin in series of good deeds you do. One good deed leads to another. You know, and if you like, as Brother Nizam said, if you're sincere at heart, that journey leads you to God ultimately. No matter where you are in the world or what circumstances you're in. I mean, God knows each and every single person and what's in their hearts, and He guides people, based on that. And what you mentioned about you being in a lowest point of your life, from what I understood, I mean, that's was also part of your journey. For you to be in that position, that was part of your journey to find your way back to God. I think a lot of us have had some type of similar situations. Not all of us, but some of us, at least, I know, have gone through similar situations, just before becoming submitters, like being at some really low point in their life, which they never thought they would ever end up in, because, for some people, that's what it takes for them to reach out to God and really take life seriously, like until it really hits you in the face. I mean, some people, God knows, some people really need that, like slap in the face to wake up.
When you've heard of people who have like near death experiences where they actually they claim they actually went to heaven or hell. I don't know. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, the near-death experiences. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are like we know, for example, that people from the Quran, like we know that once people leave, they are not allowed to come back. So, um, I mean, I don't speak for everybody, but obviously, like, I don't see that thing exactly, like explained in the Quran. And especially, what's ironic for me is all these people who go, to heaven and then come back. It's like, yo, it's not like none of them. For most of them, at least, none of them are like going to hell. They're all going to paradise, and they see this beautiful light, and they see heaven, and they see God, and everybody's cheering like they're in this magical place. That's like everybody's experience. So I don't
Yeah, I
think
mean,
it would. I
even
think it would have
I
been
worshiper,
itself. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Exactly. Go ahead, Joe.
yeah, the ones I guess they interested me more just because of things that uh like or some things that happened or I noticed in my life or something, prior to submission. But like people, like some of these people even write books. I was mainly I watched dozens of ones about the people that go to hell, and most of them, a lot of them, the Christians and stuff that said they went there, they those are the ones I kind of like listened to or I took, you know, um, I didn't really wasn't really interested in the heaven ones because as Suleiman said, they're just saying this, but like these people, they all had the same, they were there because of what they were doing. They didn't talk about Jesus at all in any of these. I watched a lot of them years ago, and but they don't ever get the message. That's the one thing I was talking with Brother Raphael. I'm just, they're all there for their works, 100%. And they all have. It's weird because I mean, some of these people are from different parts of the United States, different parts of the world, different people, male, female, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, and mainly I'd say 70% of them were raised in the church, and it had nothing to do with Jesus. Like, and it's like, okay, well, you got your answer, but by the end of their, testimony or whatever they call it, they go back to thanking Jesus, but they don't ever get the message. But yeah, some of these people, this is kind of what I wanted to like. I've read some books too. Some of them will try to make money off of these, like Mary Baxter. I read one of her books. Uh, and then this other guy who's 23 minutes in hell. So, yeah, I've kind of taken those things with a grain of salt.
Mm.
That's the best way. And we know, that hell hasn't even been created. So, what these people saw, I'm not sure, but at least, um, I mean, whatever, as long as they would take away something like good from it and reforming themselves. But, none of them, I think, seem to do it because they all end up going back to, I think, their old ways of idol worshiping some human
Hmm.
or whatever the case is. But that's just
Yeah.
one, just what I wanted to say.
Mashallah. Yeah. Also, another thing when you think about it, it's it's really what I don't like about it, is I mean, what kind of shows also like the the fact that it's not true is that they show this thing like, oh, it's almost like, oh, I was going to heaven, and then it's like, oh, I found out I'm not going now. Right now it's not the time, and I have to come back. But the thing is that if you understand God, you know that God's knowledge about every single person is complete, and He knows about every single person. He knows when their time is coming, and when the time is coming, He takes them, right? And when God says, like, when we go to sleep, we go to sleep. He takes us, we come back. But it's not like you have like halfway experience. It's almost like, oh, God forgot, or like God changed His mind. I mean, there's no such thing, right? So, and God's system is so that once you that's part of the test, right? Unless you're some messenger or something, that like the messenger of the covenant, who has to actually have an out of body experience to get some kind of a purpose fulfilled, like the fulfillment of the covenant, then that would make sense. But like, say someone having a stroke or falling off a building, experiences that, it's kind of, to me, it's like similar to people getting drugged, you know or getting intoxicated, and then giving out stories of like alien abductions and stuff. But we know people do things for various reasons. Sometimes people do things out of boredoms. People want attention. Sometimes people do it for other reasons, like monetary gains and things like that. So human beings are not very truthful creatures. Many people like to make stuff, lie about God, lie about experiences for various reasons. Like for example, like many people have given so many stories of like alien abductions and UFOs and things like that, right? And they talk about them like it really happened. And but we know that there's no such thing as aliens in
Yeah,
this
a
world.
lot of them are hoaxes.
Yeah.
A lot of them are hoaxes. Like, I used to listen to Coast AM, and like you look these people up, and they're always selling something, some type of book. And they would this radio show would have these people on, and I think it was just to get ratings and stuff.
Hmm.
You know. But
Yeah.
yeah, like that guy told me, like, don't whistle at 3 a.m.
Huh?
I was just thinking. I said, remember I was telling you about the story of the coworker that says don't whistle at 3 a.m.
Oh yeah,
He
yeah.
could have just been making that up.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember this, like, specifically. I remember this one really wicked woman, and she was an alcoholic, and she was very like mean and abusive uh in one part of her life, in one side of her life, although trying to appear very nice and everything. And same person, she gave the story about her near-death experience, that there was all this light and everything, and then she saw something like God told her, like, you have to go back. You have some unfinished business or something, and then she had to come back. And the same person, like, someone invited her to a Quran study. She's like, "Oh no, I that's not something I do. I drink and she said, I drink and smoke and I have sex." So she had a near death experience, and that I remembered that. I was like, yeah, okay, well, that's what a near death experience is. Like, if these types of people are having near death experiences, like that's, I mean, that in itself tells me a lot.
Yeah, but also, it could just be in a lucid dream. Like,
Yeah,
what if it's just a very
yeah,
realistic dream and
yeah,
these people just
yeah. I mean, see,
go
the
all the
thing
way
is,
with it?
yeah, mashallah, the thing is that the beauty of the message we just read in today's study, right? God says the Quran is fully detailed, and everything we need to know for our salvation is in the Quran, right? Anything that is not in the Quran, like the messenger says, it may or may not be true. We don't accept it. We don't really care for it. We follow the Quran alone. And so, if people are saying stuff like, let them say whatever they want in that regard. But we only believe what we find in the Quran, and we don't find any stories about people having near death experiences, to go off of. So, it's all just speculation or falsehood to me.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, that's also people sometimes, so many people, even though also some will also believe those things. I do not understand, because when
Mm-hmm.
people die and there's no way you can come back, how can you come back? Then when you see the unseen, she's gone, it's
Mm-hmm. The
done.
test is over, yeah.
The test is over. And even also the messenger of covenant, he experienced his thing. He did not see the unseen. That's why God showed all the prophet and messenger and the worldly body. He did not see the other dimension.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have a near death experience. It wasn't like their souls were taken like for going back to God, like almost dying or something and then coming back.
Mhm. Yeah, I think those people like the adding or something is like we cannot trust those
Hmm.
things. That's my understanding.
Yeah, and also another good point I would say, another good point I'd say. I mean, it's my. I don't want to say good point because it's my point, but the point I want to mention is that when you read about the experiences that people actually go through as far as the Quran is concerned, it doesn't match with that. Like, you don't just, like, when the time of your death comes, you don't just start ascending to heaven and start seeing the light and stuff. God says exactly what happens, right? I mean, angels come, and if you're a good person, angels come and invite you to step out of your body, and you leave, right? And we don't see like them talking about like angels inviting them in any way, also, right? Because that's not even their time to go yet. And for the disbelievers, God says that the angels, they beat them on their rear ends, on their faces, and snatch their souls. It's a very supposed to be a very um, uh, you know excruciating. I mean, it's supposed to be full of excruciating like pain and misery for those people. You know, and like these types of people, obviously, like this person I was just mentioning was a very wicked person, and just I mean, all kinds of stuff, right? And so like uh, uh, for a person like that to go through a near death experience, as far as the Quran is concerned, I mean, she should see that the retribution, you know. So, but yeah, I think enough said. Yeah, and if you, the thing about the mutual blaming, if we think about it, like, hell is full of like every kind of torment and chaos, um, in contrast to paradise. And I mean, just like, imagine like being stuck in an argument with someone for 2 hours, let's say, right? I mean, how crazy that would be. And you have these people that um, God talks about being stuck in hell for eternity. Mutual blaming. Fighting with each other, blaming each other. Um, you know, um, all this stuff. I mean, just shows to us how horrible it would be. Like, imagine, like, if you live somewhere and your neighbor was fighting with you all the time, you'd want to move out of there, but and on the day of judgment, like, you can't. You're stuck for eternity. Pretty scary. And for the believers, I mean, it's the total opposite, right? I mean, how it says that by God's grace, it says we will remove all jealousy from their hearts, even so they won't even have like any negative feelings, minor negative feelings, even like jealousy is not a minor thing, but I mean, jealousy in itself, like, it's not visible. If you're with someone and someone's being jealous of you, it's like very benign in a way that it doesn't hurt you directly. I mean, just the initial thought of it, it's like a invisible kind of a hurt, right? Like, having a hurtful thought about someone, like suspicion, for example. I mean, something you can see, but on the day, I mean, in the hereafter, I mean, imagine, like, people will not even have jealousy. You could be living in a mansion, like, the size of the earth, or bigger, but nobody will get jealous of you. You won't have to worry about people being jealous of you, or say, for example, like, someone wanting to take your money. So even we will not people will not have like the slightest worry, or slightest feeling of unpleasantness or insecurity or anything like that.
MashaAllah, brother. This is why we talk about, that this is it's a reward, like, we see that people look at heaven and and then when they talk about heaven, or they, or the like they have it as a subject, they just give it lip service, because if you really believe in the hereafter, and um, um, you believe in paradise, that it's a reward. You don't just go to paradise for for doing nothing, for just
Mm-hmm.
staying in your old ways, and
Yeah.
like you're not gonna enter paradise like that. You enter it by striving for the cause of God and following the commandments, and paying attention what's being revealed to you in Quran. Um, I mean, all the laws is there, like how to treat each other, how like
Mm-hmm.
the charity, like it's all there. This is how you get to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, like
Yep.
like your wife was just explaining too. Um, that it's not, you don't, and get to paradise just like a freak, or no,
Wishful
like
thinking.
you have to like it's the test, and it's not easy. You're gonna have to go through these tests. You're gonna have to go through difficult times, and we know from the Quran that God tests you both with difficult times and good times too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yep.
we have examples in Quran that you could be tested both ways. By
Mm-hmm.
taking, and by also things that are given to you.
Yeah,
Mashallah.
and not just being tested, but the part about you being righteous, you also have to keep doing the righteous works. You have to do your salat. You have to give the charity. You have to do all the religious practices, read Quran, do all these things, not lie, cheat, commit adultery, or violence or things like that. I mean, you have to lead a righteous life all your life, on top of just being tested with difficult times. You have to do all these things to get your soul to be at a point where it can be in paradise. I mean, like, it's like someone not lifting like any weight, like even a 5 pound or something, and then thinking that on the day of judgment, like, they're gonna lift 1,000 pounds. I mean, that doesn't work. Obviously, how you have to be really strong and practice in order to do something like that, right? And it's the same for people's souls. People who go to hell are the ones who didn't develop their souls enough to withstand God's physical presence. I mean, obviously, people are not randomly assigned paradise, and it's people who didn't grow their souls sufficient enough to withstand God's physical presence are going to run to hell on their own volition. So all those types of people who just think about heaven and think that they will go to heaven, um, like this very famous person, cannot just go to heaven like that.
Mashallah, brother.
Yeah.
That's true. Where did Brother John go?
Um, did he drop off? I think he may
Yeah,
have the internet
maybe. Yeah,
gone bad.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Also, verse 51,
mm-hmm.
verse 51, 51. Those who
Mm-hmm.
do not take their religion seriously and are totally preoccupied with this worldly life, we forget them on that day because they forgot that day and because they spurned our revelations. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's it's like, and like, brothers, I don't know, sister, um, God makes this part like like not so like this he makes this very easy for us, because the mathematical miracle is there in Quran. We have Quran alone. We had the messenger of the covenant saying follow Quran alone. So we know what the revelations of God is. Like we have the complete um, revelation. Um, the last testament. And at this point, like really, there's no need to um, like it's very straightforward, right? Like the revelations are here. Follow Quran alone, and this is it. But you still see people falling into a trap and still um, end up not following this verse and other verses like this verse, and still find a way to um, lead them to find a ways for them to go to hell, and it reminds me of the audio where the messenger is talking about how these people are forcing themselves to go to hell, because at this point, like you have everything is like everything like it's complete, the religion is complete, we have the full scripture, we have the mathematical miracle, follow Quran alone, and somehow their jinns or and Satan or somehow they still end up, and it's um, unfortunate, for those people. But as believers, as submitters, it tells us like we must always be on our guard, and we must always ask God for help, um, and we must kill our ego, and we must like when God says something, like we must submit to it, and we must like because we know that it's coming directly from God, So there's no room for ego, there's no room for opinions or anything. When um God says something, as believers, as submitters, we just have to submit, and and also submit. We've talked about this. Also submit happily, and as submitters, this will come naturally. You'll be happy to submit to the truth, um, and these revelations and anything that comes from God alone should make us happy,
Mm-hmm.
Mashallah.
So, yeah, mashallah, I think very good points, and also I think Brother Nizam mentioned some things about submission, like going to all these groups and thinking everybody's a submitter. I mean, that was exactly my experience too when I first became a submitter. I was very excited, and um, I thought that everybody who's saying they're submitters, like they are actually submitters. I mean, like, what are the odds of someone like finding the truth and worshiping God alone, and then like they would fall off the path? Like that's very naive thinking at the time. Like, okay, of course, like you found God alone and going through all this stuff, like why would there be such a thing as like, say, someone who's deviating or deceitfully like misleading other people, or someone like a hypocrite? Like I assumed that everybody, or all the people around me, or all the groups, like they're all following submission. But yeah, but in reality, that's not the case. So I think when we become submitters, I think for people like, uh, I guess it's important for them to understand that they can't accept things from other people blindly. I mean, they have to think for themselves. As Houda said, on the day of judgment, you're not gonna go with the group or people, or who take comfort in numbers, or anything, or just listen to other people. I mean, we have to think for ourselves, because on the day of judgment, it's just going to be you and God. So a lot of people, when they uh, come into submission, they, sooner or later start attaching themselves to other groups, and then sometimes people fall into this sheep mentality or group mentality, where they just follow other people, or they just try to accommodate other people's views, or accept them, just to get along. Um, and that's exactly what happened, that led us to be swept in the crowd in the high society, right? So that shows that, people who are succumbing to, like, peer pressure in this way, um, are basically failing their test, because they're making the same mistake that we made in the high society that led us to come here.
MashaAllah, brother.
Yes, I am completely agree with you, brother. Yes, because I was going through all these things, So yeah, so when we became a submitter, so God will test us. God will, bring us, expose us, or of course, what we sincerely follow the God alone, Quran alone or not. So in some point, if all the submitter, I think, will get something. It's not in the Quran, or it's not in the, it's contradict with the teaching of Messenger of Covenant, and how you react, So if you are true submitter, you will object, and you research, and you will try to find the solution. What is Quran, what is Quran saying? So yeah, so this is also a kind of test, I think, this my understanding for all these years now. So the God allowed to bring
Mm.
something. It's not in the Quran,
Right.
and it's happening. It's in the, it's already there. Yeah, it's so
MashaAllah.
Exactly.
it's not easy. It's so hard, actually. Sometimes,
Hmm.
we, Satan will confuse me also. Confuse us. Oh, am I true believer, or true, or the other person is the true
Hmm.
submitter?
Hmm.
Yeah, mashallah. I think that's a good point, brother. I didn't want to cut you off, but I just wanted to say this real quick. Sorry, but to cut you off, but that's what makes it, I think, is so bad. Like why, people, because they have literally can influence people to come with them to hell. If they're
Hmm.
that's what makes it so dangerous. That's, I think, where what you just said, where the real danger comes in, because you want to, believe what these people are saying, because you want to trust people, and when people tell you something, or when somebody says something, you take their word for it. Uh, but I mean, at the end of the day, we know God will uh, protect the people who want to follow His path alone, and believe in submission as it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
So even though we don't have anything truly really to worry about, like in the sense of God's protecting us, but we still must be very diligent in doing our part. Um, as everybody has just been talking about and discussing these points, good
Hmm.
points.
MashaAllah, brother.
Sure. Yeah, I think also another thing I wanted to respond to, is something that Brother Chris, you mentioned regarding convincing people, right? And I'm not sure if by convincing you actually meant convincing them, because we know that only God is the one who guides people, and so I mean, you can invite people, really, but that's pretty much it. I mean, also because God says there's no compulsion in religion, and and you just invite people, and then you just leave it to them. You know, God has given us all free will to make a decision. I mean, we can encourage people to do things, right? But you know, when we actually try to convince someone, like for me personally, I feel that, you know, like for example, in your case, right? I mean, God wanted to guide you, and He guided you, and you just saw the truth, and and you were captivated by it, right? You were captivated by it. Nobody had to really convince you, you know, to follow it. Um, you were inclined to recognize the truth when you saw it, and it's the same with other people. You know, you just uh, invite them. You just give them the message and show them the path by God's leave. But then, if they see, you know, if they're meant to see, they will see it. If they're not meant to see it, no matter what we do, you know, people cannot be guided. And when I feel like when you really feel like you have to convince someone, you know, and you're trying and trying, and the person's not getting it, you know, like it's a sign that they're not meant to get it. You know, like a lot of people, we've had many situations with people, for example, in the past where like they decided to take on a certain unquranic stand about something, like we were just talking about innovations, etc., right? Inherited traditions and things like that. And you know, if you don't get it after listening to all the proofs and explanations from the Quran, there's nothing that can help people. In other words, who have made up their minds, you know, like who have taken a position against the truth, until they decide to get out of that stance. Like nothing, there's nothing we can do to show them the path. Like almost a literal barrier. You know, I mean, it's not literal, but you know, figuratively speaking, you know, an actual barrier is placed in front of them and behind them, as God says, and they become people like deaf and blind. You know, where a deaf and blind person cannot really see anything, cannot grasp anything. So, you know, we just give them the message and move on. And you know, really, this is God's path. I mean, people, you invite them, but you don't have to sell it to them. Like you don't have to literally sell it to a person, because you know, like for example, it's like you have $1 billion, you know, like you will never have to go and convince someone, hey, I have $1 billion, please, please, like I really want you to take it, it will change your life. You know, like it's never has to be kids, because everybody knows its value, and they want it, they should come and get it because of how valuable it is, and someone who deserves it will get it, right? And it's the same with the message, you know. People who are sincere at their hearts will automatically be attracted to the truth. When you show it to them, you know, they will come rushing to it, you know, for themselves. Like, you know, if God wants to guide someone, I mean, you don't have to convince them, really, you know.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I felt like for a long time after I believed in God, a big part of my inspiration was promoting the truth, or at least proclaiming it. But it was after a while, it did become this thing where it was like one time I was debating one of my coworkers, and it was like just going around and around. I was like, okay, this is obviously not gonna
Mm,
change anybody's mind. And I went to the break room and I did a random verse in the Rashad Khalifa Quran app, you know.
mm,
And it was like, isn't it time for the believers to give up and recognize that God,
mm,
if God willed, He could guide everybody to the same unanimous understanding. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And then
that was.
I started to get inspired about coming to Central America.
So, tell us more about that. What you just said about in Central America. I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I just, I was in the United States, and I know we're kind of banking on the victory uh, coming from the United States, and I felt like was putting in my 2 cents or whatever, trying to get people in my. I'm originally from Colorado, and I was in a small town, and I had a job where I had connections to people, and um, I just kept getting this idea, I would get this idea about what community or what a good life would look like according to my own
Mm-hmm.
discernment. And then there
Mm-hmm.
was the same thing I was talking about earlier. Like I got a desire for something, and then it came across my path of a specific way. So like I made some connections out here, um, and they were exactly what I was looking for, at least in maybe not so much in spiritual terms, but in literal terms. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been here 4 times now. I've been here for over a year or almost a year. And I got my residency. So the other times I just visited for a few months and then went back.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what I was looking for was, at least practically speaking, like, well, I have this desire to be like off grid at some point, God willing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, only as God wills, right? I don't really hate
Mm-hmm.
technology, but I was inspired that based on everything I saw in the world, like living in nature would well, in Central America is pretty amazing. Like if you wanted to go off grid, or not, even if you didn't want to go off grid, if you just wanted to like learn how to farm and have like your own kind of lifestyle or a natural lifestyle or independence from the system at least, it's a really
Mm-hmm.
great place to do that. I was just
Mm-hmm.
showing some other people that there's some property out here right now in Panama. And I mean, it's not cheap. It's like 1.6 million or something like that. But for what you get
Mm-hmm.
out here for that kind of money,
Uh-huh.
it's like a literal paradise. You
Mm-hmm.
have fruit trees everywhere, a river running through the middle. It's a little garden with a flowing stream. You have
Uh-huh.
wells. You can put cattle on it. And I thought I was here
Mm-hmm.
just for my own reasons, but I did start to think more about it recently. I was like, I wonder if some other submitters would be interested in, because I know some Seventh Day Adventists who bought a compound out here and thought if they could do it, I think the submitters
Mm-hmm.
could do it 10 times better. um,
Uh-huh.
and so I did start to think about that because, like I said, I was out here for very specific reasons, and then those things kind of unfolded in unexpected ways, and not necessarily the ways that I was
Mm-hmm.
hoping for or planning for. So I don't know if I missed the point or dropped the ball, but I'm still out here trying to figure out like what I could do from here, you know. But
Uh-huh.
it's a pretty nice place, and it's pretty uniquely friendly towards expats, and Panama's uniquely
Mm-hmm.
fertile, and they have a lot of faith here. It's all Christianity, but it's still I found that there was something to it beyond like the atheism that seems to have taken over the West, you know.
Mm-hmm. So is it like predominantly Spanish speaking people?
Yeah, it's almost
Mm.
all Spanish. It's one thing that gets me a lot is like all those years that I didn't spend learning Spanish. It'll be really helpful now.
Yeah, well, so we have on the upcoming submission app, we will have a complete Spanish translation also with the full app interface. You can change it to Spanish 100%.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I
Yeah,
haven't even thought about that because I've
yeah.
since I've been here, I've taught a couple Panamanians submission.
Mm-hmm.
One of
Mm-hmm.
them we did it for 5 days, and we had like miracles and all this stuff, and then they just gave it up. And I felt like they just found it a little too difficult, and I also might have made it a little too difficult. God forgive me, because I was in a phase where I was doing like, for my own reasons, I was doing like additional stuff like fasting every day. So when they did it with me, we did it my way, and then later I did talk to them. I was like, I hope that you didn't give it up just because of you thought, because like I wasn't decreeing mandatory fasting or anything. That was just what I was doing at the time, and
Uh-huh.
so I did try to talk to that person because they gave it up, and I was like, God forbid I made it too intense and like scared them off. But over the years, there was more back and forth, and they didn't. They were like, they didn't want to give up on Jesus, so that was their
Oh, okay.
at least their excuse. I don't know. But then I also had a roommate here who I taught submission. It's been weird because like I've taught two people how to submit. One of them gave up after 5 days despite literal miracles. Like it was somebody I knew for years, and They had 2 or 3 big goals, and in 5 days they got all of them, like
Oh well.
literally. And I don't want
Maybe
to
they
say,
were just waiting for those goals. Once they got their goals, that's then they don't want God. Some people are just fair weather friends when it comes to, or bad weather friends rather, when it comes to God. And when they have everything, God gives them what they want. God says, they revert to idol worship.
Yeah, mashallah. But I was gonna say that like that's the second Quran. No, you just correct.
Yeah, yeah,
Mashallah.
that's interesting.
and that's a good point. The thing with this one person is that the goals would have like when she was on it, she was getting there, but then
Uh
when
huh.
when she stopped, it went away, and
Uh huh.
so it was like but it is a good point, yeah, because she did revert,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
never knew, like to this day I still have signs about who I was supposed to be here with, and maybe I
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to just be here for 10 years and not teach anybody nothing, and then I learned Spanish, I learned how to work the land, and then maybe 10 years from now there's a group of people who's ready to experience the mission. I don't know exactly. I try to leave room for the
Mm-hmm.
mysteries of God because
Mm-hmm.
I went in guns blazing. I came here, this one person, we worked on it, they didn't like it, and then I was like, okay, well now what do I do? But sometimes
Yeah.
things work out in a way you didn't expect.
Yeah. So what do you do about your Friday prayers, brother? You're by yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I have friends from around the world who do different formats of Quran studies in Juma, so I just kind of jump in because right now my only job is my master's degree, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty much always available at my computer. So I just kind of
Mm-hmm.
go around and talk to
Yeah.
people.
So
And
so so y- so the problem with that is, like, obviously you can have Quranic studies everywhere, but your Friday prayers are not the same as the Quranic studies where you can just do it online, because it is something that, it's a religious practice, right? So, like, for example, if you watch the video with the Messenger of the Covenant, he said, and just to give you an example, right? He said that, normally he says when he is at home, he said he would finish the contact prayer. After he would finish the contact prayer, he would sit down and pray to God for things, like imploring God, praying for stuff. But he says, you notice that, when we're in public, he says, I don't sit even for a minute. As soon as the prayer is up, I get up right away. He said, because innovations creep up on us. And so, like, when it comes to our religious practices, he said we cannot do that. So something as righteous as just sitting down and praying to God, which is perfectly fine in this, if you're doing it by yourself, right? But for it to become an innovation, like, you wouldn't do it, for the same reason. For example, you can't have a woman lead the prayer for a man, because and the messenger talked about that as well, because it's an innovation, right? This is God's system, that this is how it's done. And so, for the same reasons, the Friday congregational prayer is a prayer where you have to physically congregate with the attendees, the other people, and network with them and things like that, catch up and things like that. And so the way that that has been done since the time of Abraham has been, physically going to the places. And even, for example, when the messenger of the covenant was alive, right now they had telephones, and he was giving his number out to everybody, but nobody was calling in to Masjid Tucson at that. And I'm talking about that Masjid Tucson, at the time of the messenger, not the Masjid Tucson of today, right? Nobody was calling in to a masjid and doing their, Friday congregational prayer, like, over the phone, right? I mean, all these things uh, started after the messenger of the covenant passed away. Like, this Masjid Tucson that you now know that exists, it's one, not the same building. Two, it's not the same nonprofit even. It's a different entity and run by different people with different ideas. I mean, this is again, an innovation, because you have to, when it comes to the practices, you have to follow them exactly as they were given to us from the time of Abraham. So, like, for example, when we do our Friday prayers, like giving time with the sermon, everybody's sitting down. Like even though people had chairs, you don't see people listening to the sermon sitting on chairs listening to the sermon. Everybody's sitting down on the floor because that's how it was done and that's how it's supposed to continue. We can't make any adjustments or changes to it, right? So even though we have online uh, things to online platforms to be able to connect with people, you can connect with them, but there's nothing that can replace an in-person connection, right? And so God has made it so that it has to be done in person, and we can't change that. So Messenger talks about that also. If you cannot physically make it to a Friday prayer, you just do your 4 units. You could have said like, no, try to call in or something to remote in, but the thing is that if you can't make it to the Friday prayer for whatever reason, even though missing the Friday prayer, as it says in Appendix 15, it's a gross offense. But if you can't make it, you just do your 4 units, regular 4 units, like for the noon prayer, because the 2 units of the sermons make up for the those 2 units. So if you can't do 2 units of Friday prayer with the congregation physically, you just do your regular 4 units of prayer.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's one. I appreciate that insight. Yeah, I haven't done much for Juma while I've been here. I mean, I will follow that protocol that you just outlined. Um,
Hmm.
and you all don't do yours online. Are you guys all close to each other, or do you all have your own communities where you are at, or?
Yeah, mashallah. Well, we live in the same house actually right now. Me, my wife is actually in Morocco, so um, I live with brother John and Raphael, so we share the same house. We live in Sacramento, and so we kind of do our Friday prayers here together.
Oh,
Mashallah.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Right on. Right on. Yeah. No, I've wanted the community connection. I was very inspired. Like I'm less inspired now than ever. Well, no, still inspired about Central America, but there is no
Uh-huh.
submitter here. And I tried to make some. I
Mm-hmm.
tried to create a few submitters here, and we didn't quite
Mm-hmm.
get there. I got pretty close. Got pretty close. I could have at least, yeah, at least with one of my roommates. If I had led it, she would have attended a Juma. But it was always weird for me here with the few people who I taught like the stuff like the prayers and stuff like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
one of them would do it all and then resist it and then abandon it. And then the other one did
Mm-hmm.
half of it, but then like didn't believe in it, just did the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which
Right.
is strange. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I don't know if it's not my time or if there's some unexpected thing. Like I don't know. It makes me think of
Yeah.
how the Corona is meant for a central
Mm-hmm.
community. I just wondered if because I was really inspired to be in this
Mm-hmm.
place, and
Yeah. I
but
mean,
I
the good
don't
thing
like
you
being
mentioned.
without other submitters. I don't like that. So
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good thing, like mashallah, for example, um, brother John, for example, he works in Texas now, but he still comes here, and we still live in California. He goes and flies in and flies out like every 2 weeks or something. And we still, mashallah, we're able to enjoy each other's company, and mashallah, it helps us. We keep each other in check, like we remind each other, and that's why it's important. Like when God says, force yourself to be with the believers, and being around other submitters definitely has great benefit, by God's leave. And then you being alone now can probably appreciate that, uh, right? I mean, but yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is about convincing other people about, yeah, giving the message to other people. I mean, it's just you still get the credit when you invite people, and you can invite them here, you can invite them in Central America, it's the same, but we know that the message is going to, the United States is going to be the heart of Islam, where the message is thriving. I mean, you can still share it from here with people, Spanish speakers around the world. Let's say if that's your passion or your calling, quote unquote, to do that. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's still important, to be around other submitters and to be safe and all those other things. But yeah, I mean, I like what you said about the properties and being able to do more with the money, uh, and that's always attractive to me too. I guess, I mean, I've been traveling recently a lot, and these things often cross my mind. But obviously, there is value. I mean, the reason why you pay more, there is a reason why you pay more when you live in a place where you have like more things for convenience and safety and whatnot. So that's also something I think we have to take into account as well, like especially when it comes to property and living in a country.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, like we were living in Texas before for 1 year, and we were in Texas, and uh, and it was a lot cheaper to live there, and not too cheap, but I mean still relatively a lot cheaper compared to here, but we understood that okay, where you have to pay a little bit more, uh, uh, but it's definitely
Was yeah,
a reason.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's so nice. I mean, Lake Tahoe. I mean, so many other yeah perks.
right.
Mashallah, the trees. Oh, Brother John.
Yeah, the trees.
The
Tree-
But,
trees.
the treats.
Oh, the trees.
Oh, the
All
trees.
the trees.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Mashallah.
Oh yeah, it's a
There's
lot
even
greener.
huge trees like right next to the house.
Mm,
There's a lot of trees everywhere. Mashallah.
mm. Yeah. Plus, there's other people around too that I think are submitters, but we have to coordinate coordinate with them. There have been like certain splits in the past and people grouping and regrouping. So we kind of want to get to the bottom of that and try to figure out like if these people can be together here in Northern California.
Yeah, I think Brother Chris, I think you said something about um the United States being the heart of Islam, and this is a Quranic prophecy. It's on a even now it's the most important community. Um, and the important community is in the United States, and and the message will this will be the heart of Islam. It's a prophecy to come. The heart of submission. Excuse me.
What do you all do for work that allows you to move around like that? I'm curious. I just like when I was in the States, I just worked in retail, and I also didn't drive, so it was good for me to live in a place where I could get around on a bike. So I was always kind of
Mm,
limited to I kind of stuck to my one
mm-hmm,
city for the most part, and then but when I came to Central America, I always had savings, and then it's much cheaper
mm-hmm,
here. You can go for a lot longer on a lot less. And then in
mm-hmm,
Central America, like nobody has a car, so you can ride a bus all the way everywhere.
mm-hmm. Right. I mean, here they have buses too, but yeah, I mean, um, for me, like I'm a software uh, developer, so I work remotely, and yeah, And Brother Raphael had been working in retail. Actually, he's still kind of, but since we moved now, he's switching the process of finding another position here locally. Since we just moved recently, and then Brother John, he's into oil and stuff, right? Like
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, yeah, oil and gas. Not the gas you let out though. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
That's why I said oil.
Yes,
Yeah. So yeah, and my wife, she's a physical therapist, and Brother Nizam, I think Brother Nizam, you're also doing some work with stores or something, right?
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. I know. I'm doing some accounting. Yeah, I have my own business here now.
Oh, you're not doing the stores anymore?
No, yeah.
Okay, okay. Like what, tax accounting and stuff?
Yes, yes, yeah. Forming
Okay.
the corporation, that's notary
Mm-hmm.
public, something like that. Yeah,
Oh, I see,
and
I
the
see.
tax, yeah, all the.
Mm-hmm.
And I am trying to also get rid of all these things now. It's not good job that that much.
Mm-hmm.
So many things you like the compromise sometimes. So it's so
Mm-hmm.
bad.
All right.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
ones who misrepresent their businesses and stuff.
yeah, yes, yeah. It's so hard for the submit.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, brother. But I mean, what I want to say, it's like I wouldn't worry about that stuff too much, because God is the one who provides, and if God wants you to be somewhere, He'll provide for you there. He makes the way for us. He decides our provisions. So if you feel like you want to be with other submitters, like don't let this thought like hold you, from wanting to do what you want to do and live with other submitters around other submitters. If that's what you like to do, God is the one. He will provide for you. He's the one who provides for you there in Central America. He can provide for you here as well.
Yeah, brother Chris, I'm like that too. Like I like the trees and the forest and all that stuff. Like I love that type of stuff. I know brother
Yeah,
John does
mashallah.
too,
We
and
all we
brother
all do,
Suleiman.
mashallah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mashallah. It's kind of like
Mashallah.
I'm
Brother
pretty sure it's
Nizam doesn't
in all
like
of
it.
us.
He likes New
But
York.
mashallah, there's places here too. Brother Chris, there's
Just kidding.
places here like that you
yeah, it
can
was
Yeah,
visit.
man.
Suleiman's. Yeah, Suleiman's idea to go to Lake Tahoe. I'm so glad we went when we
Mashallah.
did. Like it was
Cool.
like turned into basically a vacation. It was so fun.
Mashallah, we still
Mashallah.
gotta go back, brother John, to where
Yeah,
brother Suleiman follows
Sure.
plums and go
yeah,
travel in that direction.
yeah.
Yeah, we make it out.
Yeah, I've actually always loved California in my life. The few times I've went there, I always had like a
Uh-huh.
profoundly good experience. So yeah, I'll keep it in mind. Y'all don't need a roommate, do you?
Yeah, mashallah, we do actually. We live in a big house, and we actually we have one room actually.
What's the rent?
Yeah,
We could talk about it offline. The study's being live streamed here talking.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we can talk about that offline, yeah, brother. No worries.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Um,
I will definitely keep it in mind.
yeah. Mashallah, yeah. So I guess anyone has any off topic questions? Uh, to discuss before we end the live stream? We can still talk about it just after the stream, God willing. End the stream. All right. So if not, thank you all for joining us. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. So we can end the stream, but I will just end the stream. I forgot I'm the one who's streaming, and then we can continue. Give me 1 second.